I'm Michael Hoffman in Hobe Sound, where dozens of Martin County residents gathered, most demanding quiet zones at railroad crossings. I listened to their concerns and took them directly to a county commissioner.
If the gates are down and the lights are flashing, why do you need a horn? The horn's not going to change anything.
Residents in Martin County,
I hear these trains every hour, every night. Until they
fed up with the loud noise from trains at the 27 railroad crossings across the county.
You hear it whether you want to or not. They're very strong horns.
Rick Mack says he lives just a few thousand feet from one of the sets of tracks, and he says it's becoming unbearable.
The last couple years, it's just really exploded.
It's got to be frustrating.
It is.
Residents came out to bounce questions off of county staff and Sitting Commissioner Stacey Hetherington.
I'm in favor of the quiet zone. The next step is bringing it in front of the county commission to implement these.
Most people at the meeting support quiet zones, but not everyone agrees. Donna Coaches, who's lived near the tracks for years, says she's concerned about safety.
I don't have a problem with quiet zones. My concern is what is going to be that last safety feature to make people pay attention to the fact that the train's coming.
Once the commission gives the green light, county staff will need to upgrade the crossings to meet federal standards for quiet zones. The next county meeting is Tuesday, May 5th, and residents are hoping commissioners will finally take that vote. In Martin County, Michael Hoffman, WPTV News.
The issue this evening, of course, is quiet zones. It's come to the attention of the Taxpayers Association that this is very important to the citizens of Martin County, wherever you land on the issue. And so we're here this evening just to facilitate that conversation. With us in the audience this evening, and she's going to be available to answer questions, is Commissioner Stacey Hetherington. It's okay, you can clap. She's good. But very, very important housekeeping. We also have Commissioner Blake Capps. And there's a little thing in Florida, it's called the Sunshine Law, and it means that they cannot communicate with each other, but they are allowed to attend an event like this together at the same time. So if a question is sent towards Commissioner Capps, he cannot answer it because we can only have one that is going to field questions. But your feedback and your input is very important to him. So he can be in receive mode, he just can't be in transmit mode. So that's the way we're gonna roll this evening. So as I mentioned, we're here to talk about quiet zones, and I'm gonna get right to it. Well, a couple of things. We're gonna take questions at the end, so hold your questions to the end. I think it's very important, especially when you're talking about a conversation that can get heated. We got to be polite, no yelling and screaming and shouting out. So let's do our best to keep it very civil, and then we'll go again. We're going to go to questions at the end. So without further ado, to express the people's viewpoint, I'd like to introduce Dr. Bob Schiller. He's a resident living within the railroad corridor. Dr. Schiller.
Good afternoon, my fellow residents of Martin County. For 4 decades, my wife and I have lived here, largely in Mariner Sands. Before that, my parents. So I've known this area for quite a while. I'm fully vested in it. It's been my main residence for over 4 decades. Thank you. I'll try to do better. Okay, thank you. We've all chosen Martin County to call home, whatever neighborhood or community that we live in, for a lot of reasons. Those of us who have chosen to live on the eastern side along A1A, we know full well that there's the advantage of being able to access the beach, hospital, doctors, downtown. And we also know, along with that, we have a railroad track system, largely with freight trains for many decades. That's the trade-off, and that's fine with me. But what we were not prepared for was the extent to which high-speed rail was going to be introduced to Martin County. And with the additional 34 trains, we now have the benefit of being serenaded by over 200 horns day and night. 200. When Brightline came and began its application, we in Mariner Sands were very disturbed and upset because we realized that if it was passed, it was going to create for us a quality of life that would be depreciated. And it has. And I'll speak to that. Anyway, I was part of the finance committee of our board of governors at the time, and we pushed for a voluntary assessment of our members to join the Citizens Against Railway Expansion, CARES, that was headed up by a gentleman over in Palm City. Our community responded overwhelmingly with the voluntary assessment. We contributed, along with many other communities, and Martin County took the lead to litigate Brightline to stop the trains. Over $17 million was spent in that effort. In 2018, there was a litigated settlement signed by 3 signatories: CARES, Martin County, and Brightline. Now here's the interesting thing. We, in that settlement, we, meaning Martin County, basically stated and received the following, and I'm going to read the settlement paragraph to you. Based on Brightline's analysis of the Federal Railroad Administration Quiet Zone Calculator, now again, this is a direct quote, Brightline believes that in view of the crossing improvement, Martin will qualify with the Federal Railway Authority as a quiet zone, so long as Martin in its entirety applies for a quiet zone designation. Further, it states in Section 2K, application for quiet zone by Martin, any municipality within Martin or Palm Beach County, north of West Palm Beach, that qualify under the FRA's quiet zone calculator for a quiet zone designation. Now, interesting, keep that in mind. Okay, and here's why. Starting August of 2004 through 2005, last fall, we all know Tequesta. We all know very well Indiantown Road and Highway, and Jupiter and Palm Beach Gardens. Their local elected officials declared quiet zones. Their local commissioners approved it. Further research shows 80% of all railroad crossings in Palm Beach County, Broward County, and to 92nd Street South in Miami have been declared quiet zones, some going back to 2019. And that's for freight trains and Brightline. Does anyone know what rationale these elected officials had in each occasion? Well, I did. I looked back, and here's what it is. Basically, it was quality of life of their residents. Think about that for a moment. We don't have the density, certainly, of South Florida. We have a beautiful county here. We wouldn't be living here if we didn't, and I think it's very well run by elected officials. However, for whatever reason, our county commissioners last March voted not to have quiet zones. What are our primary concerns? There are 2 that I have on behalf of my community. One is something we all share, quality of life. 200 horns a day affects our quality of life, ladies and gentlemen. noise pollution at the utmost. And number two, I came across some interesting reports by our tax assessor in Martin County. And they say that the persistent train and horn noise has a depreciative effect on our property values. And they cited Loblolly, where you know is diagonally across from Mariner Sands specifically. And here's what's interesting. Up to 29% depreciation of comparable communities. Folks, my property is worth 20 to 29% less than other quality communities because we have the horns. Now, moving on, I guess the question that really comes to my mind would be this. I also spoke with 3 independent real estate companies who do a lot of work in Mariner Sands. And I have depositions from 3 of them stating that they have lost sales when people have walked away, coming back a second or third time from the home when the horns were blaring. And what is the primary justification that we have here? Well, like I said, each time a community passes the quiet zone resolution, it talks about the diminished quality of life for its residents. And here's a question I have for all of you and all the residents of Martin County and our commissioners. Does the quality of life in Martin County hold the same significance for our elected commissioners as it does for officials serving residents in Tequesta, Jupiter, Palm Beach Gardens, and all the communities south? If our quality of life is respected, then we need to have that demonstrated by what it is that we want to have happen. Peace and quiet from the horns. We can't stop the trains, but what we can do is improve the quality of the noise pollution. Martin County has invested millions of dollars in preparation for a railway station in downtown Stewart. In fact, this past year, $3.4 million have been earmarked in the capital budgets for Martin County for safety enhancements and improvements right here in Hobe Sound. That's great. We need quiet zones in Hobe Sound. I don't do the budgets. Okay. I would point out a couple of things. Selfishly, I'm concerned about the noise, particularly behind our community, where it's a very dangerous egress and entry level for our maintenance area and also for all of waste management trucks coming in. Interestingly, as far back as 70 years, I researched in the FRA, there have been no incidents or accidents at the Southeast Dixie crossing adjacent to our property. None. No incidents, no accidents. I've not researched the rest of the county. I think someone ought to do that for their respective areas. But here's an interesting thing. Did a little more further research. There's no research that indicates a direct link of train horns to safety when there are lights and bells and gates and stop signs installed. Do we have those? Oh, yes. In fact, you might want to time the sequence of it, okay, of the multiple safety features we have. You have the sequence of the flashing lights, the bells, the gates are in place. Only then, over a half mile away, does the horn sound. Now, some of us like auditory cues, others need visual. If you're deaf, or if you're in your car with the air conditioner on, maybe your radio on, you're not going to hear the horns. Bottom line comes down to, why do we not have what we want in terms of quality of life? And I recognize there's always a question of safety. And I recognize that, I respect that. But there's also a question of the residents and their quality of life. So, Moving just as I go to closing here, I initiated a petition in our community, and within days, over 95% of our residents, and we have 1,500 plus residents, signed the petition. The board sent a letter that I've drafted for them to the county commission, only to get a pro forma response. Now, I did not know this, but there are several activists in our entire county. You'll maybe hear more from them later, one of which is right here in Hope Sound. Jeff is the one who's put all the signs and whatnot together. We have to thank him. And Dave Rader and others that I've met with. They too have been out there getting thousands of petitions from their respective areas. Anyway, on behalf of myself, our community, and the board, I scheduled meetings with requesting each of the commissioners one-on-one. 4 of our commissioners, extremely gracious, immediately scheduled those meetings, either in their office or as my guest at our community. They were very patient, and very much supportive of what I had to say, and they're good people. One commissioner from Jensen Beach would not acknowledge 3 phone calls or 2 written responses, not even getting anything back. I understand Jensen Beach also residents have tried to contact without any success. So ladies and gentlemen, there are 5 commissioners. We need 3. I'm very pleased to say, interestingly, that it's not a real uphill push, but it is a steep push. 2 of our commissioners, one of which is going to be speaking momentarily, Stacy, and Ed, champion from Palm City, are supportive. At least they have repeatedly reaffirmed that support for the quiet zones. We need to thank those folks. 2 other commissioners are halfway there. We need to urge them to take the next step forward. And I would urge them tremendously to reconsider their current positions and their former vote. And it's really because of the fact of what an elected official is elected to do, serve the needs of the people. And that's our need. So moving forward, we've come to the point now where I don't know what more to do. I have an idea for a strategy, and I'm going to work through that. But again, many thanks to Darlene and to the Taxpayers Association for establishing this briefing. And most importantly, many thanks to Stacey Hetherington, who linked me with so many of these other activists, and for me to be able to then realize that I was not just doing this on my own, but they have been far, far ahead of me. I was drafted to address you tonight, probably because no one else would do it. I tried to get my wife to do it because she knows it better than I do. She's far prettier than I am. But no, not going to happen. So you're stuck with me for a few minutes here. When the email went out announcing this, the title was, Does Martin County Need Quiet Zones? My answer is a resounding yes, and now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Dr. Schiller. I would now like to call Commissioner Stacey Hetherington to the stage. She has been hearing the calls, answering the calls, but wants to make herself available for questions. Commissioner, I believe you have some staff if you need more help on the detailed questions. Ladies and gentlemen, Commissioner Stacey Hetherington.
Way shorter than everybody else. Welcome everybody to beautiful Hope Sound. And I am Stacey Hetherington. Can everybody hear me in the back? I'm Stacy Hetherington, Martin County District 2 County Commissioner, and I want to thank Commissioner Capps and all the residents of Hope Sound for welcoming us into Hope Sound. And I want to thank Darlene Van Riper and Kevin Powers and Tom and all of the Taxpayers Association for being invested in this community, for listening, for getting everybody together to talk about this important issue. So for those of you, many of you in this room, I know and I recognize. I've either met you in the community, I've met you in my office, we've talked about these issues, but I am a fourth generation Martin County native, and I was born and raised in Indiantown. So this is where I serve. As a matter of fact, I went through all public schools here, and the first thing I did when I graduated is I said, I'm gonna get the heck out of Martin County and I'm going to University of Florida, and I might not be back to Martin County. But I said I'm gonna spread my wings and fly, and I ended up right back in the most beautiful county in all of the 67 counties of the state of Florida. Yep. So it's a place that I've loved, I've worked in, I've grown up in, I've raised my kids. My parents still live in the generational home in Indiantown where I grew up in. And I don't just serve here, but this is my home. So when I talk to you on the street and I listen to you and I hear your concerns, it means that to me, and I've also lived those concerns. So when I raised my small children, I lived in Palm City in Lighthouse Point. And if you think the train horns don't impact Palm City, it carries right over the railroad bridge and you can hear it every single morning and afternoon. And I said today, if I look a little tired, it's because I've been up since 3:30 this morning, because now today I live in downtown Stuart, very close to the railroad, and those freight trains barrel through at 3:30 in the morning. So I've been up since 3:30 in the morning, because when you get my age, you don't go back to sleep and then you're up at 5:30. So one thing, we all might disagree on some things, but one thing we can all agree on is Martin County has a very unique, special quality of life. So again, I'm honored to serve you, and I've heard from many of you over and over in the community, and this is an important quality of life issue to you. So thank you to the Martin County taxpayers for inviting me here, and I want to provide an overview of the railroad quiet zones in Martin County. So they asked me to come, and I want to thank them for their leadership and their engagement in this, because it's both a public safety issue and it is a quality of life issue for our residents, and we recognize both. So today I'll walk through the key areas of our current crossing inventory, the safety improvements already in place, and the practical paths forward to pursuing quiet zones. Let's begin with where we are today, and Dr. Schiller did a very good job outlining where we've come, the litigation. I don't have to repeat everything that he said. The litigation with All Aboard Florida, which is now Brightline. Martin County actually protested this high-speed rail going through the heart of our community. We worked hard, and this was way before I was representing you. I've been 7 years representing you. But Martin County invested a lot of time and energy. So what became of that time and energy is some significant investment in corridor safety. So at the end of that litigation, we had an investment in railroad crossing safety upgrades paid by Brightline. We had corridor fencing and safety upgrades, also a part of that litigation settlement. So to date, Martin County has 27 FEC railroad crossings. 19 are county controlled, 5 are controlled by the city of Stuart, 2 are state controlled, and 1 is private. As Florida has grown, we have seen increased traffic, not just in rail, in auto, both rail and vehicle, all along the FEC corridor. Since Brightline began in September of 2023, we have seen an increase in trains, and with that, of course, we've seen an increase in incidents. Not only have we seen high-speed rail increase, we've seen freight, because whether we like it or not, and again, many of us have been here for generations, Florida is growing, has grown, and we're addressing that. Each incident represents that happens on this corridor. They're real people, they're real families. These are safety concerns. However, at the same time, we must also recognize the impact on residents like yourself who deserve to enjoy the Martin County difference in our quality of life. So more than 12,000 homes are within half a mile of these crossings, and over 27,000 homes are within 1 mile. Federal law requires train horns to sound 15 to 20 seconds before crossings at levels of 96 and 110 decibels. Now, for you and I, that's more than a lawnmower. That is a high level, and for those that are up at 3:30, you hear it, regardless of your windows being up or down. So quiet zones allow trains to stop routinely with their horns. Now, safety, they can blow their horn if there is a safety incident. But when safety is maintained or improved, these trains can, in particular areas, stop the horns from blowing. Safety measures that would have to be in place to qualify for these quiet zones are 4-quadrant gates, raised medians, one-way crossings, enhanced signals, and pedestrian protections. As a part of the settlement with Brightline funded 19 upgrades of the control crossings. Although some locations throughout Martin County, they do present physical and geometric constraints. For instance, Confusion Corner, Cove Road. To achieve quiet zones, there are 2 primary paths forward. We can self-designate, and we can apply for a FRA application. Both require coordination, updated data, and federal risk analysis. Some crossings present greater challenges, including Jensen Beach Boulevard, like I mentioned, Confusion Corner. However, there are opportunities in this county to pursue partial quiet zones in areas such as Hope Sound. The six measure crossing would make a significant difference to the quality of life to all of us. It's important to understand that quiet zones require ongoing maintenance, compliance, and recertification. And I have with us today, we have Jim Gordon, our Public Works Director, and we have Don Donaldson, our County Administrator, who will be here to answer questions at the end, specifically on the maintenance and the criteria for these quiet zones. So I heard from you both on the street and in my office, you the residents, and one thing I've always prided myself on as your representative is listening first. Many of you will actually know me. Brevity is my signature. So I'm brief, but I love to listen to you. I love to hear your concerns, and I love to take those concerns and implement some kind of action to help your quality of life. So with quiet zones, we're not choosing safety over quality of life. We will implement both. Your quality of life is important. The safety of our residents are important. Implementing quiet zones can take into account both. And I'm here to tell you that we can provide your enhanced quality of life while being safe for vehicles, pedestrians, and all of Martin County. So again, I thank you, and I want to invite Jim and Dawn up for any of our questions that we have here today. And I want to say a special thank you to the Taxpayers Association, again, for organizing this. Thank you very much. Kevin, are you ready to open it up to questions? Okay.
I just want to say something real quick. Anybody that talks, you need to be right here in the mic. Y'all can hear me now. All right, cool. So anybody that gets up here and talks, please don't be afraid to touch the mic with your lips, kiss it a little bit and talk into it so we can hear what you're saying, right? All right, we're going to give you the spare mic and you're going to bring it down for questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, it took me a second. It was behind me.
So to my right is our county administrator, Don Donaldson. And to Don's right is Jim Gordons, our public works director. And they're both engineers and experts in the topic.
Okay, who's got the first question? Sir. I'm moving as fast as I can.
My name is John Dial. Can you hear me? I'm the candidate for District 4 commission race, and I've got a question, and it's a question, not a statement. Being proactive thinking, being a boat captain and running a lot of business projects instead of reactive, did we not do decibel checks at different levels at all these crossings before in different atmospheric and wind conditions, which would have been cheap on the front end, rather than dealing with this on the back end? Did we?
That is definitely an engineer's.
We did not do decibel counts, but we did do safety surveys because the decibel reading for the Federal Rail Administration is set. It's irrelevant to the. All right, there we go. Decibel readings are not part of the quiet zone issue, but the safety gates, the quad gates, the medians, how we, the intersections around it, we did do a survey prior to Brightline doing the improvements, and we've since done previous studies. So we were always working to prepare ourselves for quiet zones in the future, but decibel readings were, other than, we knew the stated criteria for FEC and what they have to do, as was stated earlier. We did not do decibel readings. It's a no.
Another question?
How you doing? Joe Groman. I live right on Petway and Dixie, so I'm very familiar with the train horns. And when you come down from the VFW, all the way across Osprey, Petway, all the way down the bridge on the left side, those are all homes in there, you know? And really, lately it's been, I mean, it's the freights that are really blasting us up there, especially the 2:30 guy, 2:30 in the morning guy. We got to have a chat with that guy, right? 3:30 is not much better either. But as far as the commission that voted to not have a quiet zone, I mean, the quiet zone right over here on Riverside Drive and in Tequesta, it's all quiet zone. And it's a lot less, it's a lot more busy than those 4 intersections that I just mentioned, you know, right here off of Dixie where all those things are. And wouldn't it just be the next obvious choice to just bring it north right here? And I'm sure 12,000 that live a quarter mile away, half of those are right here, you know?
Yep. So even closer. When we presented to the board options for quiet zones last March, and that still holds true today, the easiest quiet zones to implement, the easiest one is the Hope Sound quiet zone. So can't hear me? The Hope Sound quiet zone is one that would qualify the easiest with the least amount of modifications. So the Hope Sound quiet zone really extends from Gleason on the south end up to Dixie Highway, so the VFW. So that would be a quiet zone that we could implement fairly quickly. But the other one that we also identified in our study is in Jensen Beach, the 2 northernmost crossings in Jensen, which is County Line Road. and so that's County Line Road and Skyline. The reason we have a gap in between the rest of them are really the roundabouts that we have on the crossings, because those roundabouts present challenges for quad gates. If you can imagine, it's hard to get quad gates in a circle. So that's why those would be a challenge.
Hi.
Can I add into that real quick? So I have two sons, 20 and 22-year-old, and they happen to love to go to the Miami Heat games. And so we've got on the train to ride down to the Miami Heat games, and I thought, holy moly, there's not a train horn almost the entire time, but well, you get on this Palm Beach County station till you get to Miami. And I thought, if they can do it, so can we.
Woo! Yeah. Hi. My name is Lisa Farley. I live in Genza Beach on Skyline Drive. And my question is, you said something about the roundabouts, how more difficult they are. Does the horn really work? If the gates are down and the lights are flashing, why do you need a horn? The horn's not going to change anything. That's it. The gates are down. You've been told there's a train. The last thing you're going to hear before you get slammed is the horn. And the horn ain't going to help you because you're not paying attention.
You're there for a reason.
Do the horns work is my question.
I think that
Do the horns work is my question.
somebody want to take that? Do the horns work? It's kind of like maybe sometimes yes, sometimes no, huh?
Well, in the end, in this particular case for us, since we don't regulate actually how the horns get blown, it's a Federal Rail Administration criteria. So I can't debate the horns uses other than we have the opportunity to put quiet zones in place if certain criteria meet. So addressing the horns and their efficacy is really not within our purview, other than I understand the question. Sometimes I'm sure they work, but on a lot of times they may not. So in this particular case, we're really just dealing with the regulatory issue, which is how would you get a quiet zone? And in order to get a quiet zone, you have to get the Federal Rail Administration to approve it. So we're not able to debate that with them, but we can debate with them the conditions where we could put in a quiet zone.
Okay, next question here.
Hi, my name's Laura D. Berard. I've lived in Stewart almost 50 years, but I live very close to the train right now. And I'm wondering how many intersections actually qualify right now for a quiet zone in Martin County.
So the number of quiet zones that qualify with the exact infrastructure that we have in place right now is 0. And the only reason I say that is the signage requirements just changed. So the signs have to be moved further out from the crossings to qualify, and that's something that if we get board direction to pursue, that's something that we will put in place, and that's only because the rules just changed. So, but other than that, there's a number of them. Almost half of them could qualify with the current, with the settlement agreement we have with Brightline and the safety improvements they had to do. It would qualify about half of the crossings in the county.
I've got an idea. Yank that microphone right out of that stand. Okay, now you guys, okay? You know how to do that. Okay.
So just to add to that is that the physical constraints in terms of the quad gates, most of all the ones at the county, except for the roundabouts, do have the mechanisms to qualify for a quiet zone. But when we did the survey, when you look at either accident history, the speed of the train, the amount of traffic, and the configuration of the road next to it, for instance, a railroad track intersection that doesn't have a traffic light, and if the train came and you were stuck with your trailer, for instance, on the track, you couldn't get on the road if there wasn't a signal. So that lowers the score. And in the case of quiet zones, it's like golf. The lower the score, the better you are. So if you have a higher score, you have to do improvements to get that score down. So we have, a lot of them have the physical apparatus to be a quiet zone, as we got in the settlement agreement. But when we did the survey prior to the March meeting, we found that either there was accident history at some of them, or some of the configurations of the intersection nearby needed to have additional safety improvements. And that's why the board, when we brought it to them, approved raising our budget in our capital program to start doing those improvements that would increase the score on the aggregate of intersections so that they would qualify for quiet zones in the future. We can average some of them together, so you could have one that has a really low score and one with a higher score, and when you average those two together, if they're still below the magic number, you can qualify both of those for quiet zone. So there is some, mathematical gymnastics we have to work with the Federal Rail Administration, but we're confident that, as Jim mentioned earlier, the ones that we have identified, we can get those improvements, we can get the quiet zone as they are now, and with the funding that the board has given us, we can make those quiet zone crossings even safer based upon the analysis that we did.
So the people in the room that know me know I can't walk away from a microphone, but Commissioner, I can certainly sympathize with you. It's 2:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning on Saturdays when they run the freight trains through. My bedroom window is literally 175 feet away from the intersection at Cross Rip and Dixie. So I hear it. I hear it all day long. I try to do a number of Zoom calls day in, day out. I'm constantly having to tell people, hold on, bright line's coming through. Hold on, freight train's coming through. But my question would be, I hear conversation. I heard something about a petition, and that was the first I've heard of any petitions going around the county. For those that don't know, I'm the chair of the Hobe Sound Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Committee, and these are just the types of issues that we like to hear at our committee meetings. So please reach out to me or reach out to the chamber if you have information that we should be sharing with the community. The Railroad Administration, or the application process for the quiet zones, what does that entail? And what is the timeline on that? Because I'd be very interested in advocating for that. Thank you.
So the application process requires us to go out and do a count the amount of traffic that's going over each of the crossings. We have to look at each of the, we have to do a field review with FRA, where we review each of the crossings individually with their engineers and our engineers. And then you develop essentially a punch list of items that need to be tweaked for it to be able to qualify. That process takes generally, it could be as short as 4 months, but generally on average, the process takes 9 to 12 months is what it took to our neighbors to the south. If we go through a process where we're averaging intersections or doing other gymnastics to qualify one crossing from another, then that process takes 12 to 18 months. So it really depends on which crossings we're including and the accident history and safety issues at each of those crossings. So the answer is it could be either a shortest would be 4 to 12 months, the longest would be 12 to 18 months.
Sorry, this is a, I don't know, could be a political question, but is there any relationship between having the station in Stewart and getting the quiet zones around here?
No, there's absolutely no relationship. The Federal Rail is who would make the decision about the quiet zones, and the station is more of a local decision.
Hi, my name is Donna Coaches. I live at Ridgeway, about 50 feet from the train. You cross the Dixie, a little bit of woods, there's back of my house. I don't have a problem with these horns. They're a safety feature. It's the final safety feature. 1 year ago, the commission voted no on these quiet zones. Are you looking at having these quiet zones being for night only or for 24 hours? I'm not done.
So that's an option for the board. The board has to give us direction on whether they want quiet zones, whether they want partial quiet zones, and whether they want nighttime or daytime.
I'd be in favor of nighttime only because I do hear that used to be a 3:15 train, and occasionally I hear it, but I have a better house now that I don't really hear them at night. But I have a couple of other questions. Someone mentioned that the decibel readings were not part of the quiet zone criteria. The train horn makes about as much noise as a Harley Davidson. You got problems with motorcycles too? And if it takes 12 to 18 months for all of these to get passed through, since the commission only voted no on it 1 year ago, what happens if they vote no on it again next March, where you've only had it you're not even through the whole procedure and you're getting through? I mean, you've got a gentleman here that posted a question that we got money coming in for this. What is the quiet zone regulations costing the taxpayers?
The quiet zone is really, the quiet zone is an administrative process. So going through, actually doing it just staff time, getting it done. You know, maybe some consulting services from a rail expert like we've had in the past. And then the safety upgrades, which we want to do anyway. So we've already budgeting the upgrades. So at this point, I don't believe of the crossings that we've identified as, quote, the easier ones, financially, it's not an issue for us at this time.
I would just add into that an hour and a half long conversation with Rory from Federal Railroad Administration was super insightful, and there are some crossings that will be more challenging, but there are some that we could get implemented way lower than that 12 to 18 month deadline.
Thank you.
And I just want to add one other thing, is that we're still going after grants to make safety improvements. So we've got a number en route right now. So there's a potential that the upgrades that we've identified could be at little cost to the county.
Thank you.
Next question. I did vote no on Brightline.
Thank you. My name is Larry Wright. I live in Mariner Sands, and I'm not sure if I'm just a lousy sleeper or I'm not getting it straight, because I hear these trains every hour, every night until daybreak. So I don't quite understand somebody say that they're not bothered by it. My question is this. I keep hearing from the engineer on the far left there that you're doing certain things at certain intersections. Are we in a process now where we're going to get quiet approval or quiet zones, or are we still fishing for money? I'd like to know where the starting point is and where the ending point is.
Very simply put, the starting point is board direction to implement the quiet zones. So simply put, your Board of County Commissioners could initiate to have our staff implement quiet zones where the safety improvement, they are valid, and we would balance the safety of our residents with the quality of life. So bottom line, your Board of County Commission can initiate that and balance the quality of life with safety.
Hello, this is Harry. I got a question. These engineers that are running these darn trains, I got a question. When they go past the intersection, they're still blowing the horn. Okay, at Gleason, I go down, I ride my bicycle up and down Water Street. Yeah, I know it's not much of a hill, but I try to get an old man a little exercise. And they are blowing the horn almost to that place, okay? What's that, a quarter mile, a half mile past? Can't they just say, I mean, these guys, they can't be the smartest guys in the world, but they're just out to piss us off, if you ask me. I mean, no, we used to have an 8 to 8 no horn thing, you know? And I mean, to me, this isn't a big thing, but I mean, it just doesn't, any time of the day. Brightline on Sunday blew the horn past Bridge Road. I mean, why is he still blowing it when he passes the intersection? Just explain.
So Gleason doesn't make much sense as if it's a southbound train. If it's Bridge Road, like the second one you brought up, Bridge Road, you have Gleason right after it, so they have to sound the horn 15 seconds before they get to the next crossing. So that's why they'd be sounding it south of Bridge. But south of Gleason, you got me. It's a human that's operating it. It's not automated. It's actually the engineer in the train who's operating that horn, and it sounds like an error. Yep. Yeah. He said that they stay on it longer, some more than others. It's supposed to be a short, long, short is how it's supposed to be heard. But yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. There's human error. Yeah, in the horn.
Where's my microphone? Okay.
Hi.
Ready for the next question? Next question.
Okay, my name is Barb Deal, and I live at the bottom of the Skyline Drive, near Lisa Farley. And we have to listen to the train going through Jensen Beach downtown. And then shortly after, it's going through Skyline, and then we hear it again when it goes through the next one, which is, I think, County Line Road. So we literally hear it 9 times. I count it at night, every night. And I know they have to do it 3 times. If they just would do it to Jensen Beach, downtown Jensen, it wouldn't be so bad. But if they could just stop, make it silent at our Skyline and the County Line Road, that would be great. And also, I was wondering if the powers that be decline this to making the quiet zones, would they consider the nighttime?
The question was regarding nighttime. Those are the options. It's either a full 24 hours a day quiet zone or a partial, which would be nighttime only. Those are the options. Ultimately, we see the process as you either get the score to get your quiet zone or you don't, and there's always an opportunity to make other improvements so that the intersection would qualify for a quiet zone. So I think it's just a matter of achieving the score necessary to get the quiet zone.
Next question.
Skyline Drive is actually one of the ones that qualifies with minimal amount of safety improvements.
I have a question. My name is Phyllis Amato. I live in Mariner Sands, and I have a question related to some of the information that Dr. Schiller had mentioned. And let me quote from it before I ask you. This only concerns the back gate, the southeast gate, Dixie Highway. After the sequence of flashing lights, bells, and gates are in place, at least on southeast Dixie crossing, only then, about a half mile away, to the first blast of horn sounds. My question is, have any of the engineers determined not whether the horns are working, whether they are necessary, since they are only sounding a half mile after these other measures that are in place? Have you ever tried to do it without the horns?
Again, that's not within our purview. That's with the trains. In terms of the efficacy of the horns, it's not within our ability to question the rail, other than to identify errors that have been witnessed, as Harry mentioned today. If they're blasting horns at times that aren't scheduled, we can notify them, but we really don't have any regulatory authority over them and in terms of how well horns work or don't work.
Yeah, Dan Buscher, Jensen Beach, and I'm not really affected by these horns at all where I live, but I have neighbors who are, and I care about my neighbors. And a question I have is, the good doctor mentioned that we have 2 commissioners that are on board, 2 commissioners that are halfway, and I think that leaves at least 1 commissioner, I guess, who's not in agreement at all. And what does it take to get these other commissioners to actually pass the bar and be on board?
Exactly what you're doing right now, sir. Exactly what you are doing right now.
It takes consensus. And that's what you all are doing here, voicing your opinions. You're having your voices heard, and it takes consensus.
And my name's Doug Hess. I live in Jensen Beach, right by Skyline Drive. Is there a time and date on any of this stuff? Because a project without a time and a date's a fantasy, all right? There's got to be some kind of a date and a time to be able to achieve a goal. If we don't have any time and date, what's the goal to miss? It'll just go on and on and on. I mean, that's just the way I feel about it, and that's the way it seems like it's going.
The first thing to do, as far as I understand, is get 3 commissioners to vote. We have 1 standing here. Okay. We have another who is so interested in what the people have to say that he came to join us. So this is working.
So I'm just curious. I'm a detail person. And Stacy, you mentioned that there are 2 state-owned crossings and 1 privately owned crossing. And I'm assuming that those are the most difficult to get into a quiet zone situation. Do we have any power, control, weight with those 3? And could you share where they are?
So the private crossings that I mentioned are DEP has a Jonathan Dickinson Park, which is Hope Sound. And then we have a DOT crossing at Indian Street, Monterey, and that's a DOT crossing. The 6 crossings that were advertised and actually probably the most easy to implement are right here, Martin County Public Authority in Hope Sound, and the 2 Public Authority, Martin County in Jensen Beach. Those will be the 6, 7, 8 that will be the most easy to implement without significant upgrades. So we have also a private crossing in Amarilla Street in Indiantown. Those will require those agencies to agree with the authority to implement those, as well as the city of Stuart. If you live in the city of Stuart, that municipality would have to agree to implement quiet zones in their jurisdiction.
Next question.
My name is Marty Diamond. I live in Mariner Sands. And I've heard 2 questions and 2 answers. The nature of the questions were, how effective are quiet zones? And the answers in both cases were, we're not here to debate the efficacy of quiet zones. So without asking you to debate the efficacy of quiet zones, my question is this. Have you seen any evidence that indicates that quiet zones are not effective? Anywhere, whether you've seen it in a report, written on a wall somewhere, a rumor, anywhere.
I would just answer the fact that the Federal Railroad Administration implemented quiet zones because if you implement the proper safety regulations, that they are effective.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carol Wright, and I live at Mariner Sands. And this might be a stupid question, but how long are your terms in office? We have 2 commissioners that are in agreement, 2 that are halfway, 1 that is missing in action and with no response. If 2 of you agree, and then you leave office, what happens? Is this grandfathered in? I mean, you need a starting and a stopping spot. I mean, what happens then?
What I will answer is the fact that if you don't maintain your quiet zones, every 3 years, you have to certify and maintain that you are keeping up with all of Federal Railroad Administration's safety regulations. If the county does not keep up, so if you get quiet zones tomorrow, if the county does not maintain the safety improvements and comply with all of FRA's rules and regulation, which there is a recertification every 3 years, then you're in danger of losing those quiet zones. So you will have to be vigilant in making sure that your Board of County Commission maintains your certification every 3 years. Otherwise, you're in jeopardy of losing your quiet zones.
And I'll just simply state with election change comes policy change sometimes. And that's a part of our democratic system.
Okay, last question.
Thank you, Stacy, for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to us. I have a business in Hope Sound, just south of Bridge Road, right on the railroad tracks. But I also live near Port Salerno. And in Port Salerno, there's 4 crossings within 3/4 of a mile. 2 of them are within 1 block of each other. There's no friggin' way they can blow the horn, but they do at 2 in the morning, all night long. 16 horns within 3/4 of a mile. That's just too much. To me, what is the big problem? Is it money? Is it always money? Is that the problem?
So the largest challenge we have for implementing a more countywide quiet zone is definitely the accidents that have occurred are causing the safety rating of certain crossings to go very high. So, for example, Indian Street, we had a fatality after Brightline came online. That crossing is a very highly ranked risk rating now. So, and the previous question was about could we lose the quiet zones? The fastest way you can lose a quiet zone is having a lot of accidents. FRI will take away the entire quiet zone if one crossing in that quiet zone has a lot of accidents. So there are ways to lose them, but that's the biggest challenge is the safety of certain crossings in the county.
We will have a petition circulate. Actually, I'm going to put it out at the back table. So as you're leaving, if you want to sign this petition, please do. And at this point, Kevin Powers, our Martin County Taxpayers Association president, take it away.
Thank you, Darlene. I know we've got a few more questions, but what I'd like to first of all say thank you, Commissioner Hetherington, Don, and Jim. Appreciate you being here. They're not running off right away, so you're welcome to bring your questions to them, any of them that did get answered. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. I want to remind you that the Taxpayers Association it only functions with membership and people like you. So on your table is information about the Taxpayers Association. If you like what we're doing, please go on and join, and that's what keeps us going. And thank you again for being here.